host and
Rest.
panelist to everyone, then we'll get the message, but the chat goes pretty fast, so we might not be able to see it. So
That's
be
right.
sure to change it to everyone.
That's right. All right. I see Happy Valley, Oregon, Tucson, Arizona, Woodbury, Minnesota, Farmington, Maine, Tucson, Staten Island, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Union, Michigan, Denver, Lynchburg, Virginia, Tempe, Arizona, Columbus, Ohio, Temecula, California, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, Manhattan, Illinois. I did not know there was a Manhattan, Illinois. That's interesting.
This
Um,
is one of the great things about having new Indivisible groups join every weekly is I learn about a lot of American geography.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's real. All right. I see some Alaska folks in the chat. Hello from occupied Memphis, Indivisible Memphis on the line. All
Oh,
right.
great. We were going to
Chesapeake,
talk about you,
Indivisible,
Indivisible Memphis. Stay
Lakewood.
tuned.
Yep.
You're going to get a shout out in just a little bit.
All right. Let's go ahead and kick off. I'll just do a couple of quick background. Welcome, folks. You are joining What's the Plan? We are having a really special What's the Plan this conversation because we have got Latasha Brown, who is a legend in the voting rights and civil rights movement, joining us to talk about the response to Calais and the upcoming mobilization this weekend. We're going to cover a little bit at the beginning. She's going to pop in when she is available. The bulk of the rest of the call is going to be Q&A. You can submit your questions for either us or Latasha using the Q&A feature on your toolbar. We're going to be taking upvote the questions you most want to see answered with your little thumbs up icon. We will be taking them mostly from the top with like a little bit of an eye towards making sure we got a range of different questions and topics. If you are in an Indivisible group, please let us know when you put your question in because we like to know that we are answering questions from people who are doing the work around the country. This is going to be recorded. A link will go out to you if you registered. You can also now get the podcast version, which means you can also now rate the podcast version if you get it somewhere.
And actually,
All
right now, literally everybody who has ever rated the podcast rated it 5 stars. So keep that going,
Yes,
y'all.
right, exactly. All the links we put in the chat are going to go out to you in the follow-up email. So if you miss anything because the chat's moving fast, don't worry, it will be coming to you sooner or later. Finally, just a note in the chat box: we have thousands of people on these calls. We have between 5 and 8,000 people usually joining us for What's the Plan. That is incredible. We love the chat box. We love people, sharing intel, figuring things out in real time, commenting, working it through strategy. We ask that people keep the chat box constructive and supportive. We are not always going to agree on strategy. We are not always going to agree on tactics. That's okay. We are a nationwide movement. We build together, and we do that with a lot of respect and care for each other. And with
Oh,
that,
we have a first timer joining. If you are new, let us know that you're brand new. We want new people joining. We want this to be a space that is welcoming to new people. Somebody asked where can you rate the podcast? Normally we ask people to rate it on Apple Podcasts. You can go in there and rate it. It does you got to log in and then you got to actually put your rating in. I will say it does help. We've talked to the folks who produce the podcast. They're like, yeah, if you could get more people to rate it, then more people see it. So it is a useful thing to do. But also, I think part of the fun of being here is being part of the actual discussion, being part of the chat, being able to ask questions, being able to vote. So please welcome new people in. We're trying to build a pro-democracy community in this country. I think this is the largest distributed grassroots movement of pro-democracy leaders all around the country. We are trying to build a movement that does indeed welcome people in. So let them know about the Zoom and invite them out. Leah, and
that's
speaking of
great.
that grassroots community, I believe there are new
I've got
Indivisible
some new
groups in
Indivisible
just the
groups.
last week.
Yes, absolutely. Please join me in welcoming Carla with Millbrae Indivisible in Millbrae, California.
Woo!
Jennifer with California Indivisible California Green Team in Los Angeles, California.
Green
Lisa.
team.
Lisa with Indivisible East SGV, Covina, Glendora, San Dimas in Covina, California.
A lot of
Christopher,
California
a
groups.
lot of California groups. Welcome, folks.
Yeah.
I think there's some stuff going on in California.
I've heard there's a gubernatorial election that's getting quite a bit of
Mm-hmm,
energy out there. That's
mm-hmm.
right.
That's right. All right, Christopher with Indivisible Windsor Locks in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Diane with Indivisible Citrus in Inverness, Florida. Very cool. Sue with Indivisible of South Georgia in Thomasville, Georgia. Ellen with Indivisible Topeka in Topeka, Kansas. And Grace. Oh, wait, no, two more. Grace with Indivisible Forsyth County, North Carolina, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Pam with Incline Indivisible in Incline Village, Nevada. Incredible.
We
Welcome, folks. We are so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining the Indivisible movement.
And for folks who are brand new, who are like, oh, I've never joined one of these Zooms before, just curious to see what it's up, you may or may not be connected to your local Indivisible group. What I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to do is find that local Indivisible group. If you look around, there probably is one near you. There are literally nearly 3,000 local Indivisible groups. These are locally owned and operated volunteer collectives of folks who are trying to fight for their democracy. And we have a philosophy about how to do this at Indivisible, which is our power is geographically dispersed. That's how our representative democracy works. That's why it makes sense for you to belong to a local indivisible group. And if you look around, you're like, there's not one nearby me, or the one nearby me isn't focused on the things that I and my friends would like to be focused on. Good news. You can start your own indivisible group. Every one of the new leaders that you just heard from, that Leah just listed, these are folks who looked around and said, I guess I've got to organize my community. You aren't on your own if you do this. You will find both other people in your community who are going to be so appreciative that you got the group together, and you're going to find support from your local national organizer and Indivisible National to help you get through all the process of how do you start a local group? How do you organize them? How do you set agendas? How do you develop leadership teams? How do you put meetings together? How do you have advocacy campaigns, electoral campaigns? We can help you. We want you to start these groups because we have this, I don't know, maybe this naive belief that if you treat democracy as a participatory sport, democracy works better. That's what we believe, and so we're committed to it. Right or wrong, we believe that. So you'll have support to start those groups if you want to get it together. So thanks to everybody over the last week that Leah just mentioned who decided to organize their community. That's the beating heart of this movement. It's what's allowed us to build and wield power, and we're going to keep building and wielding power because the fascists aren't just going to give up their power. They are going to relinquish it when we demand it through the democratic process. That means getting involved and getting organized. Leah, shall we get into the major
Yeah.
content of the day?
Yes, absolutely. I want to note Latasha is with us, so Ezra is going to do a quick better know an indivisible group before we introduce Latasha and take your questions about All Roads Lead to the South and the post-Calais response. Ezra, over to you.
It just occurred to me, Leah. So we have been starting with Better Know an Indivisible Group, and this was a little nod to the way back when on the Colbert Report there was Better Know a District, and now we have Stephen Colbert being kicked off the air by
Yeah.
the corporate overlords listening to Trump. So we continue in the
And
tradition
we're
of
dating ourselves by making that
yeah,
reference.
that's right. I guess that's right. You used to love the Colbert Report, though. Okay, so welcome to this week's edition of Better Know an Indivisible Group. I'm going to take you all the way over to Tennessee with Indivisible Memphis. As everybody knows, in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's Calais decision, we've just seen this urgent rush by states of the former Confederacy, that Confederacy of losers. You might know them as the folks who lost the Civil War and then couldn't get over it for over a century. Well, those states are back again, y'all. The Supreme Court is helping them out, and they are rushing to do everything they can to gerrymander black and brown folks out of political existence. And in Louisiana, I think folks probably saw this. The governor literally threw out tens of thousands of votes because, man, he just couldn't pass up the opportunity to gerrymander himself into more congressional power. Going into Tennessee, the Republicans and the white nationalists have teamed up to rush as fast as possible, bulldozing through this racial gerrymander for themselves and stripping Democrats in the state assembly, in their state legislature, of their committee seats. Literally saying, oh, you're opposing this, you're organizing against this, you're out. You can't even sit on committees in the assembly because of it. This includes friend of the pod and former Indivisible Tennessee organizer Afton Bain. It also includes state legislator Justin J. Pearson. Y'all might remember him as somebody who won national fame as one of the Tennessee Three. These were the three standing up against gun violence for gun violence prevention. This is back in 2023. He was expelled from the assembly for standing up in opposition to the Republicans on this. He was two of the three were expelled, actually, two of the Tennessee Three. You might also remember that the one who was not expelled was white. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But that did not deter Justin J. Pearson. He immediately ran for and then won re-election and is now still a state legislature, which is how he was just stripped of his committee spots by the white nationalists and Republicans who control that state legislature right now. Now, one response to this that you could have to this attack on democracy is to give up. Look, the right-wing whack jobs are in control of just about every level of government in the state. They control that House and the Senate and the presidency at the national level. What can you hope to achieve? Why don't you just throw up your hands? Why don't you give in to doomerism? Well, giving up is not in Indivisible Memphis's DNA. Within 48 hours of the new gerrymandered map being bulldozed through the legislature and signed into law, they organized this mass rally with the A. Philip Randolph Institute for Social and Economic Justice. They called it Memphis Won't Be Silenced. And at that mass rally, among the speakers was none other than Justin J. Pearson. And following this, they have rallied around Pearson to be a candidate in Tennessee's 9th congressional district. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy road. It is a Republican leaning district, but it ain't a Republican dominated district, y'all. They are not giving up. They are organizing. If you have ever asked yourself what you would have been doing 61 years ago when John Lewis and many civil rights leaders, faith leaders, union workers, pro-democracy organizers marched across that Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma to push for the Voting Rights Act and win us the representative democracy that we know as American democracy today? The answer to that question is whatever you're doing right now. Indivisible Memphis is showing us what they would have been doing. They're doing it right now. And we should all be taking inspiration from it. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. We should all be giving Indivisible Memphis that compliment. And on that note, we've got a special guest to talk about a historic event coming together for this Saturday. All roads lead to the South. Leah, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our guest.
Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who does not need an introduction. She is a movement hero, movement visionary, Latasha Brown, but I am going to give you a quick bio. Latasha is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund, a power building group based in the South, which has played a pivotal role in electoral politics from the 2017 Alabama Senate race on. She has spent decades working to build Black political power and representation from the grassroots to the national level. We got to know each other real well during the charge for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act during the Biden years. And we are tremendously fortunate as an ecosystem that she is leading the charge now as we face this vicious onslaught in the wake of the Calais decision. So, Latasha, welcome.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. I know that's not what you asked me to do, but I want to start. Movements are rooted in spirit, and it's the spirit of our humanity. It is in our song. It is in our DNA. We were built for this moment. So I know people are feeling like what we're going to do in this moment, the people are going to rise up. That's exactly the answer and the antidote to this hateful, racist, fascist regime that is in office right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm seeing all the love
Leah,
and
can we hear your
appreciation.
song now?
Yeah, you do not want that. You do not want that. Let me tell you. That's we're gonna need to have Latasha
Come
be.
on, Leah, come on, break
Trust
out a
me.
tune with me. Come on.
Well, have Ezra get that guitar off the
That's
wall
right.
and he can start playing.
Okay.
So,
That's a good response. I won't be doing that, and you won't be singing, and everybody will be happier for it, and we'll leave this to Latasha. Yeah.
anyways, well, let me ask you. So, a lot of the discourse on the Calais decision has focused on this immediate congressional redistricting fallout and this onslaught from Tennessee to Louisiana to Alabama. But the Calais decision has implications that go way beyond the 2026 congressional map. So, can you start just by grounding us with what this means for Black and Brown political power and representation in the South?
So there's a couple of pieces that I want to share. And one, I think the first piece is this can actually reshape the entire political landscape. There's a report that people want to get kind of the details. We don't have that much time, so I won't go through all of that. But you can actually go to our site, blackvotersmatterfund.org, or you can go to Fair Fight. We came together and did a report. And when we're looking at the report, based on what they're doing right now, there's the possibility of us losing 1/3 of the Congressional Black Caucus. That's about 19 seats. And across the South, that is huge. That will shape and shift the political landscape forever. And so that is extremely egregious for Black representation in the South. I want to raise some other layers too. It is egregious for political representation in the South, but also I want to show how it is egregious for America. Why? It's because when you look at Black elected officials, we have actually been on the right side of history most of the time. We've had a couple of outliers, but when you look at progressive politics, there's no pathway to progressive politics that has not been anchored, supported, led, or even the base vote has been African-American voters. So this is not just about what happens to Black voters, even though that in itself should be enough. The fact that we're looking at being disenfranchised in this moment. Some of the things that some of y'all may be following, when you look at Louisiana, Louisiana is a state that now is 1/3 Black. And so although there's growth, although you see in this particular Calais case, that you had a group of citizens that identified themselves like they were just racist. They just came on out with it. It was like, their only identification was a group of non-African Americans, right? As if anything with them. That is literally the group that sued for the Calais decision. They named themselves, their identity as non-African Americans. That's how egregious and how intensely racist they are. And so in this particular case, you know, in the Calais case, in the state where it's 1/3 African American, there's only one competitive seat. And when we say the districts are drawn in such a way for Black representation, it's not like it's given. It's not like it's an automatic. Those candidates still have to appeal to the base of voters, both Black and white and whoever in that district. They have to work. They have to serve their districts. And so ultimately, this is really about marginalizing Black voices, but it has an impact on all of us. When you look at Alabama, Alabama is a state that 1/4 of the state is African American. And so 25% of the state, but what you've seen is a state there's only been one seat that has been African American. And so as a result, there was a lawsuit in a Milligan case that just 2 years ago, let me tell you the significance of this particular ruling last week. Just 2 years ago, the Supreme Court even came down and said, listen, this meets the criteria of Section 2. State of Alabama, you got to do better. You got to draw some maps, right? You have got to get another district for African-American voters to be competitive in the state. And the state was so racist, so egregious that they refused. That this same conservative court had to tell the state of Alabama, they had to bring in a special master to draw it. So they were familiar, there's on the record, they acknowledged the discriminatory practices, they acknowledged, and even the attorney general in the state said they had an agreement that this would not be, no match would be touched until 2030. That was an agreement that the Republican side made. So what has changed? So this is a Supreme Court, the same exact Roberts Court. So what has changed in the last 2 years? Let me see. You all know what the answer is. It has been administration. So this particularly last week, they actually went against their own ruling. So that tells you that this Supreme Court has been corrupted and captured and is capitulated to the the executive branch. No longer do we have this balance of checks and balances between the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. In fact, what we're seeing is that they are becoming instruments of this fascist regime, and they're actually no longer an independent justice body. So given that, what we know is we have other options. When we don't have the House, when we don't have the Senate, and when we don't have the White House, we've got the most powerful chamber ever. We got the people. And so that's why it's important in this moment that we are the people. The Constitution says nothing about protecting the interests of political parties. This is not even about the Democrats or the Republicans. People are trying to make this be a state. Well, you still will have Democratic districts or Republican districts. How disrespectful that is to me. What you're saying to me is that I don't have the right to choose, that you're automatically going to decide what side I'm on. You don't have that right. That this is really about, I have the right, that if God has given me, and I'm a person of faith, the power of choice, then who is this government to try to take away my choice to be able to weigh in on decisions being made about me and my family and my communities? So given that, part of what we've decided is in a very grassroots, in the same kind of spirit of Indivisible, why I love my sister Leah, is that ultimately we are from the ground up. And you know, things that grow from the ground up got roots in the ground. And when you got roots in the ground, it doesn't matter how hard the storm comes, you may sway a little bit, right? You might bend a little bit, but you are rooted in the ground. You are not going to break. And so ultimately, that's who we are. We are rooted in the ground. This rich soil in the state of Alabama and all of these other racist Confederate states, that soil is drenching with our blood, with our tears, with our sweat, but it's also drenching with our work and the memory of those who made and shifted in this nation. So we ask people to come and join us on this Saturday. Get your folks, get your folks together. And this is not a traditional protest. I do want to make sure that people understand this is for all intents and purposes, I'll just say this is almost like the gathering of waters, that we are coming together in the spirit of solidarity, in the spirit of love. The only thing that's going to defeat hate is love. The only thing that's going to shift this political mess that we're in is us leaning into our humanity.
Latasha, when you speak, it just seems like everything's possible. I could just listen to you talk about where we're going all day long, and I actually want to listen to that a little bit more. So let me prompt you to tell us a little bit about this. I think we all, Indivisible and Black Voters Matter, got particularly close around the last fight around the Voting Rights Act, around Freedom to Vote Act, around the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and I remember we were out in Phoenix trying to push Kirsten Sinema, that old villain
Yes.
of the fight, to get on board with the reform of the filibuster so we could outlaw gerrymandering, so we could get money out of politics, so we
Yes.
can make democracy actually responsive. And so this is not a new fight for you. You've been in this
No.
fight for quite some time, in the legislative fight too, and also you were just speaking about this corrupt Supreme Court that we've got structural factors that are against us. And so while legislation, simple legislation, protecting voting rights through legislation is clearly it's necessary, what's coming into focus is that it's not sufficient, that we actually need something more than this. Can you talk about what are these structural things that we need to fix to actually have a representative democracy that works for us?
In this moment, I want the people that are on here, I want the leaders on here. I just want you all for a couple of seconds. I want you just to close your eyes for a quick second. And as you close your eyes, I'm going to ask you two questions. My first question to you is, what would this nation look like without racism and sexism? And then my second question to you is, what would this nation look like if all of the people in this nation were valued and respected? You don't have to like them. You don't have to love them. You only have to be with them, but that just their humanity was valued and respected. Now open your eyes. And so I know I see a lot of people saying Norway. Oh,
Bad news about
that's a good
Norway,
one.
y'all.
That is a good one. The truth of the matter is, there is nothing that has been created in the physical realm that wasn't first envisioned. And I'm saying that because I want us in this moment to shift the frame of just seeing ourselves as citizens of a nation that didn't see the humanity of most of us, that didn't see the humanity of women. It did not even see the humanity of white men if you weren't wealthy and owned land. It did not see the humanity of my people and my ancestors. It did not see the humanity of our indigenous brothers and sisters who actually were stewards of this land, right? It did not see the humanity of most of us, right? That the vast majority of us. And so we've given them 250 years. They've had 250 years to do and put their vision. I believe that it is time for it, as we're celebrating this 250, the next 250, we have to be the architects of that. For the next 250, we have to shift in ourselves, just as the citizens of a nation that was shaped by those who had limited vision, that were not necessarily could not see the humanity of all people, and were not in the conditions in which we find ourselves now. That it is in our moment now that we've got to start planting seeds of what will the next 250 look like, and be the visionaries and see ourselves as the mothers, and the founders of the new nation of the America that we all desire and we deserve. Getting along, all of us are never going to have the same belief system. That's just not right. I don't even agree with myself in a fool, right? Right. So I understand, like the conflict is not the problem. The problem is not that we don't know how to get along. We don't know how to fight. We don't know how to be in disagreement with each other, that there's civil discourse, that we actually can hold the humanity of each other while we have differences of opinion, difference in political ideology. We've reduced that now that everything is about whether you're on the blue side or the red side, and the humanity piece. I'm not on either side. I'm on the humanity side. And whatever party or whatever group or whatever politicians actually support the interests of humanity, I'm down with them. And so we have to right set this. This isn't about political party power. This is really about the people power. And in this moment, I think Leah and Ezra, I think this is a moment for us to come together. I think there's a moment, I've been honest and open about, there has been a lot of hurt in the Black community of feeling that constantly, that when it comes to rights around, I can go from the abolitionist movement to the suffrage movement to the education movement, all of those movements, we have been a part of those movements and have to anchor and even support, even at the expense of us being marginalized, right? And in this moment where we're seeing this blatant racist anti-Black attack on Black voters in the South, right? I think this is a moment that we can actually heal some of our wounds in our community. I think this is a moment that we can show a unified front, that the America that we see and we envision is multiracial, is multicultural, is multi-generational, that we can stand together just as we did during George Floyd. That was one of the proudest moments in my life when I saw the level of diversity of people standing together, raising their voice and saying, this is wrong. I think we're at this moment right now that is a possibility for us to take advantage of this moment and stand with a community that has literally put everything on the line to try to build and strengthen this democracy.
Just noting that there is a lot of Latasha for president in the chat. I think that's the most common thing that I'm seeing right now.
That would be quite interesting, I would say.
Well, let me jump off of that comment because, Indivisible, we are a multiracial movement, and also, we're aware there's a lot of white folks around who are activated and who are outraged and determined and who want to show up in this moment and who understand that this is a really important moment to be showing up for Black folks who are under threat. So what do you think is important for white people, non-Black people who are organizing in this moment to understand and to do?
That we need your voice and we need you to use your place of privilege. We need you to continue to resist with us. We need you to stand on the front lines with us. We need you to support our work. Oftentimes, it's very important that we're not silenced in this process. Part of the beauty of this of this weekend, it is Black led, that the All Roads Lead to the South has been Black led because the attacks have become primarily at the discriminating and marginalizing the Black vote. But it's not, there's nothing that we have ever done. There's no movement that we have ever done that is about exclusion. That our movements have always been about inclusion. Our movements have always been, everything that we've ever fought for has helped everybody else as well. And so I am saying that in this moment, what I believe that people can do is organize, organize, organize. We've got to use our collective power. We've got to use our collective voices. This is not a Southern issue. What I would say is, we're saying all roads lead to the South, but if you're under Canada, you're pretty much living in the South about right now, right? We've seen this before. We've experienced this kind of fascist concentration of power. And we also have learned a couple of tools on how to beat it back. And the way that we have actually been able to beat it back has been about organizing and leveraging our power in this moment. Please do not be silent. Please do not be in the space of, and we also have to get to a space that there is a different frame of how we're dealing with race in this country. We have not dealt with racism as we need to deal with. We have not dealt with the anti-Blackness. That is not a matter of getting along. It's about we have to really transform our belief system. Every single thing in this culture has reinstituted and reinforced this idea that some way Black people are less than others. We commit more crime. We're more prone to what are all the negative stereotypes. And so it's really important in this moment that we see this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to get this right. This is an opportunity as we're going in the next 250 years, we got to do two things. And I'm really three, but the two things I'll say is block and build. We have to block the harmful legislation that is happening now and this attempt to consolidate power. That has to be blocked by any means. We've got to block that. But we also can't just be blocking and say that we're going to go back to where we were, because where we were was not good enough. Where we were got us here. We've got to actually make a quantum leap and really have the discipline, the rigor, the fortitude, and the ability and the humility to understand that there are a lot of things that we have not gotten right, that we have to do racial healing and racial reckoning, that this country has created a major disservice on its minority citizens, particularly the Black community, that there has been an extraction of wealth, there's been an extraction and a constant fight and attack on our basic fundamental right as a human being in this country. And so I think that there is a moment that this can be an aha moment for all of us, that we make a commitment, that we understand that the change starts with us first, that we take this opportunity to be transformed from the inside out, and we work like hell to make sure that the out actually reflects what we have inside. If we have love inside, if we believe in the humanity and we center humanity, what can stop us? Nothing can stop us. Governments are only as legitimate as those that they govern see them as. And so we have to understand and right set this, that they can't tell us what to do, that we sent them, we tell them what to do. We sent them, they are in position to represent us, not the opposite. And we've got to hold them accountable. And part of the reason why we're where we are is because we have gotten complacent, that we have gone about our daily lives and we've worked and we've done these things. And many, even within the nonprofit sector, that we've created, that we've got these different nonprofits that are in these silos, and we're going to be issue organizing. And it has come at the expense of weakening our movement. But I can tell you, in this moment, we can build, we can create the beautiful mess. We can create the beautiful mess in the beloved community that Dr. King talked about, the one that I believe in, the one that I love, the diversity of ideas and the diversity of food and diversity of people. I love that. I feed off that. That is what gives us, that is what gives us purpose. And I so hope that in this moment, we understand that we are not so focused on those that seek to do us harm, that we forget that we are the architects of what is next. So I'm hoping that we ground ourselves in this moment to see that this is a window of opportunity for us to take our country back and to shape it in such a way that it has room for everybody, including the people that we don't like.
Latasha, I think everybody who is listening to this is like, I don't know how they could listen to you and not want to be part of this fight. I think they're itching to know what they can do. I know I'm going to be out in Alabama this weekend. I know Indivisibles in Alabama are going to be showing up in Montgomery. I know people are taking buses from Florida and Georgia and elsewhere to get out there. I know the No Kings Coalition is throwing down and wants to drive as much attention and visibility as possible to show up in solidarity. For everybody listening, tell us what if you could wave your wand and everybody takes some action this weekend, what are they doing? What are you having everybody do this week? What are you having them do for the rest of this year?
There are three things. The first thing is those that have the ability and the means, we want you to join us and stand with us as we're like, the way I'm thinking of it is like the altar call. We're just calling forth, it's a gathering of waters that we will come together in Montgomery. Those of you that can join us, those of you that are unable, and if you can join us or even help organize some people to come and join us and spread the word, right? The second thing is, if you can't join us, because we know this is a very organic, we playing this in 6 days. This wasn't this was a rapid response. The people just gonna show up. We're gonna act. And so those of you that are unable to join us, that your participation is very important as well. There's a couple of things that you can do. We want to deem you as our activators. You are our activators. We want you to activate everybody in your neck. Go through your cell phone and call all your girlfriends. Have a wine party. Do things that will actually you use this moment to lift it up. We're going to be live streaming it. And so you can be able to get a group of folks to live stream it. Or there are distributive actions that we're working with the Indivisible chapters in 12 different places. So you can go be a part of a local action in your community, create a local action in your community, but stand in solidarity with us. The third thing that we're going to say is Saturday is not the end. It's not the critical moment that if you're not here, no. What Saturday is, we're hoping that it is the spark that says, yes, the first leg of this fight was from Selma to Montgomery. The second leg of this fight is Montgomery and beyond. That we're going to pass with that. We're not going to fight the same fight. We're not even going to ask for the same thing. We're going further. We're asking for more. We're going to be stronger. We're more diverse. All of those things. And so in this moment, what we're asking is for us to gird ourselves up for what is to come next. That after Saturday, we're saying from now until the midterm elections, every living body that we can find, everybody we know, we're going to talk about voting. We're going to organize like nothing before because they're trying to steal this election. Let's be clear. They are seeking to steal this election. And the mapping process, anytime in this country that they've wanted to, those people that are in power have wanted to take away rights, or resources, they've always interjected race because they know that
Yep.
race is such a
Mhm.
vehicle in here. And not just take away rights and resources from Black people, they just use that as a smoke screen to take
Yep.
rights and resources
Yes,
away
that's
from
right.
all of us. So in this moment, while they're spending millions and millions of dollars to build a fancy, what is a fancy dining rooms, right? And to share and money and corrupt, spend money with their friends. This is the moment that we have to use as an
Yes.
opening to come together to end this corrupt captured court, for us to talk and plant seeds about things that we need, like proportional representation going forward, about the elimination of electoral college, the new ideas, things that we can really talk about and discuss around what is America that we want to see, that we will create for the next 250 years. We will be the architects of that. And part of what we need people to do is, come on, y'all, gird up. Don't, this ain't the moment not to feel hopeful. This is not the moment to feel dejected. Part of the why we're seeing the intensified hits coming. So the chaos is the point. The chaos is to make us feel
Yes.
like we're isolated. It's to make us feel like we're fighting and we can't win. The truth of the matter is the people can always win. It's just we've got to remind the people that it has always been the people to win. At the time that even when this country was founded, England was the big dog in the world. Yes, and a group of people was like, we're not paying no taxes on no tea. So we're not doing that. We're doing something different, right? And we know the story from there. My point is that every nation, every movement that ever has been started, it was a committed few that actually they were blocking, but they knew they wanted to build something different, and they had a belief in something greater than the Constitution, than the Bill of Rights. They believed in the power of people. And so I'm just asking us to lean into that. Please go on the website, allroadsleadtothesouth.com. You can donate, you can volunteer, you can do text messaging. We did a text messaging, we did a texting event 2 days ago, and we had members from Indivisible, Leah, and we did 1,000,000 texts,
Wow.
live texts in a short period of time. And one woman alone did 50,000. I still can't figure out how she did that, but she did that. So some of y'all are on fire. I also say, let's pull up this is the soft science, but I really believe this. Let's pull up like love. That there's so much evil and hatred and fear, that the only thing that actually what Dr. King talked about is really love. And we know that. And so we're going to have to love a little bit deeper. We're going to have to love each other. We're going to have to be patient with each other more, right? We're going to have to pull on those love streams as we build our movement, because I believe that the character of our movement will set in tone the character of the nation that we desire and we deserve.
Right on cue, the love emojis are flooding us. Can't see anybody's faces because of how much love there is in this chat right now. Latasha, thank you for your leadership,
Thank
for
you.
your inspiration.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your strategic guidance throughout all this. You've been an incredible partner. Basically, since Indivisible started, y'all were already there organizing, and it's been a real honor to be in this movement together. And we're going to do everything we can to gird ourselves, as you say, to build on this spark that y'all are creating for Saturday and to drive forward, not just to what we had, but to something better. So, folks, as you heard from Latasha, you can go to allroadsleadtothesouth.com. You can go to blackvotersmatterfund.org. Get your community together for this Saturday and beyond. That's how we win. Latasha, we're going to be out there in the streets with you, and more to come. Thank you for joining us.
He who believes in
Thank you.
freedom will not rest until it comes. Bye,
That's right.
y'all.
Bye,
Bye.
Latasha. Whew. We
Uh,
could just stop there. I'm
I know.
inspired. I
Yeah.
want to go do a marathon. It's just you can't
Uh,
listen to Latasha without all the barriers and all of the but what abouts just kind of
yeah.
melt away, and you think, wait, we can do this. This is possible. We just
I
got to
know. I
do
know.
it. We just got to
Yeah.
do it. And
I'm jealous that you're going to be in Montgomery this weekend. I think it's going to be a really historic moment, and I know there are people who are on this call who are thinking like, can I make it? Can I reorganize my weekend to be there? And I will tell you, you should do that.
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah,
But good news. It's not the only opportunity to
that's
step up
right.
big. So we're building from this, as we heard from Latasha. Okay, Leah, should we go to our live
Let's
Q&A?
let's do our live Q&A and let's see if we can like, kind of lightning round through a bunch of these questions because I want to
That's
make sure we get
always
your that's always our
That is always
aspiration.
the goal. Always the goal. We
Always
will
the
try to
goal.
lighten it. Okay. So as a reminder, we take these questions live. I usually learn these questions as I read them, and they are voted out by the people attending the Zoom. So if you're listening to the podcast, that's where they come from. If you would like to vote or participate in submitting a question, got to come to the Zoom. Uh, First question, top question, comes from Janice, who asks, Pete Buttigieg warns that if/when the Dems take back Congress, they must not merely undo what Trump has done. That would just put us back at the state that got Trump elected. We must instead reimagine the country. Do you think the Dems are positioned to make this happen?
You could not design a question that is better positioned to make us fail the lightning round than this because we talk about this so much. So much.
We talk about it so much. We do. You know what, Leah? We wrote an entire book
We
on this
wrote an
6 years
entire book.
ago.
That's right. The short version is yes, we need to do that, and no, they are not remotely positioned yet to make it happen. We need accountability on a scale that has never happened for elites in this country. We need to end the like massive elite impunity. We need structural reforms that fundamentally unrig our democracy, that do what Latasha was talking about, recognize the Supreme Court has become a partisan instrument and fundamentally restructure power in this country. And we need an agenda that actually meaningfully delivers for people so that they experience in their lives that democracy is making a difference for them. And we currently are, I would say that various pieces of that diagnosis are held by various parts of the Democratic Party, but heck no, it is not yet a firm consensus.
At the risk of mansplaining and just saying what you just said, I'm just going to say the two things that are in my head. One is that it is good that somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who everybody expects
Yes.
is running for president, is saying something like this, because the way that you will get the agenda, regardless of who becomes the Democratic nominee, regardless of which Democrat ultimately wins in 2028 and becomes president in January 2029, the agenda that becomes HR1, the first piece of legislation that makes it through the Congress, is going to be determined by that presidential campaign debate, by what is the fait accompli, what is the inevitable. Well, obviously, we have to do this because this is what all of the presidential debates were about leading up to that win. And so it should not just be Pete Buttigieg saying this. Every single presidential candidate in the Democratic primary, which will kick off as soon as the midterms are done. There's a shadow primary already, but in full, it will kick off after the midterms. Every single candidate should be asked, what the hell are you going to do about the Supreme Court? What the hell are you going to do about the collapse of independent and free media in this country? What the hell are you going to do about gerrymandering? What the hell are you going to do about money and politics that is subverting our democracy? What are you going to do to not just gloss over everything Trump has done, not just bring back some version of democracy that was already hobbled and allowed Trump to come back into power, but build a democracy that actually works? That should be the number one question that everybody's forced to face. And you know what I don't want to hear? We're going to form a committee. We're going to have a lot of interesting ideas and discuss it. I don't want that. I want specific legislation that says what you're going to do and we can debate. Do not send this to some boring committee and come back sometime in 2035 with ideas. It's not rocket science how to fix this democracy, y'all. Tell me what you're going to do. We should all be demanding that. That's one, but I don't want to let us off the hook to say this is all coming in 2027 or 2028. Whether or not we have a Democratic Party that is prepared to actually push the envelope, to actually do what it needs to do, is not being determined just in 2027 and 2028 in that presidential contest. There are Democratic primaries right now, y'all. We just heard about this. Indivisible Memphis is rallying behind Justin J. Pearson in a Democratic congressional primary to try to push not just a Democratic majority into reality, but what flavor of Democrat makes up that majority. And so right now, you should be asking Senate and House candidates who are asking for your vote in primaries, what are you doing about the Supreme Court? What is your plan for significant accountability in January when you get the gavel? We should be making those demands now. If you think we have a Democratic Party that isn't yet up to snuff, good news. You are the Democratic Party. We all are. We are if we make demands. There's no shadowy room somewhere that is dictating all this. They will mostly do what they want to do unless we're pains in the ass. It's our job to be a pain in the ass this primary season and right up until we have a majority. And then when we have that majority, we got to be a pain in the ass too to demand they do what we put them in office to do. I think that's about as fast as we can cover that question. Leah, we could do a whole weekend on this. Sometime maybe we will, but let's keep on going. Deborah asks, frankly, it seems like we're not doing enough visible displays of outrage. It actually feels like this movement is slowing down and it's getting depressing. When are the next big actions that we can collectively take? Dead Cody from South County Resistance in Wakefield, Rhode Island. I think something to pull out here, Leah, is something that came in on the group leader. We do a monthly group leader sync call, something similar to What's the Plan, but just group leaders. But this basic issue came up. Leah, do you want to talk about how we engaged in that conversation among group leaders yesterday and how we're thinking about this current moment?
Yeah, look, we've heard that from a few folks that this has been, the last month or so has been quieter, that there's, fewer new people showing up to the meetings, et cetera. And that tracks, I would say, with some of our own metrics, our ways of tracking activity. And I would say a couple things. The first is there are going to be periods during when everyone is all in, when there is a crisis, when there is rapid response, when new people are flooding in, and you're just treading water at best, trying to intake them and do everything you can. And there are going to be some times when it's a little more still. We think about it as wave moments and calm moments, right, on the sea. And that's kind of part of the natural sequence, natural order of how energy moves with this stuff. And so I wouldn't panic about it. I think that it is always a good moment prompt to think about, what is my group doing? Is it plugged in and engaged on something that's locally relevant, where people really feel the benefit and the value of their work on an ongoing basis, outside and above these rapid response moments? But there's also no harm in just being like, hey, I'm going to take a couple of weeks and be quieter and just rest a little myself, because Lord knows we ask you all to do a lot, and we're going to be asking you to do a lot over the next 6 months. We are really fundamentally in the pretty brief lull before the full-blown general election season launches. So what I would say here is, don't panic. Always a good prompt to think, am I doing the right set of things? And also, maybe just take a week to chill out before the full general election season starts.
Just to add to this, let real talk, y'all, about like the tactics and strategy of organizing mass pro-democracy movements. Everybody on this call, everybody listening to this podcast, we are the weird ones who are thinking about this all the time. Every piece of news breaks and we're like, holy shit, I can't believe the regime just did that. The vast majority of people, the vast majority of the time, are not paying attention to this stuff. This is a niche area of people who care about democracy, who care about what's going on in politics. And we can't pretend that everybody's going to pay attention all the time. What we unfortunately can depend on is that Trump is going to pull a lot of bad stuff between now and the midterms. He's openly talking about sabotaging the midterms. His regime affiliates are talking about mass deportation forces like we've not seen anything yet, even in the Twin Cities. They're planning to ramp up. Unfortunately, I expect things to get pretty bad between now and the midterms as the walls close in. And so what we should be thinking about is, when the energy does spike again, how are we grabbing people and getting them into our movement? Because it is all well and good for a lot of people to show up on one day, even a No King's Day, and say, I'm mad, and in historic numbers. I like that. But if that's all that happens and we haven't done the legwork to pull them into our communities, that's one day. That ain't going to change anything. So in these calm periods, what I would say is, like, sure, maybe take a vacation, maybe watch your Netflix show, that's okay. But also think about, what are you doing to prepare your community for newcomers? So when that spike happens, you got them in. There is a leadership role for them. There's something they can do. There is a meeting that's coming up that they can be part of, and you're building your community. That's work that you can do when things aren't blowing up. And I just want to reflect back to folks, it is true that the last month has been quieter in terms of movement energy. Probably the quietest month that we've seen in the last year or so, maybe since shortly after the election. That is real. I don't want to act like you're imagining it. That doesn't mean things are broken. That is how movements go. It's spiky. It's not constant
Yeah.
up. The question is, when it spikes, are we prepared for the spike?
And one thing I do want to name on that is we are seeing a spike with the VRA fallout,
Yes, that's
right?
right.
We are in the moment, and it's not uncommon that like the mass reaction is not necessarily to the Supreme Court decision. It's as the consequences of that decision start to happen, people are like, oh shit, the Republicans are just going full, they're going full Klan, they're going full hoods off. They are simply eliminating black representation across a bunch of different states at a shocking speed and frosty. And so we're seeing the energy build there right now as people are really seeing the full consequences of the decision play out in real time and seeing the spirited pushback in all of those places. And so, I think there's a moment right now that if you're thinking about what can galvanize and bring in new people, this is a good example of that. We have an action this weekend, as you may have heard earlier on this call, to get back in. But also, I think it's just a matter of like continuing to pace yourself and figure out when and how to plug into the moments that spike energy.
Yep, that's right. Kenneth
Weird. Failing the
asks,
lightning test. All right.
I know, that was predictable. Kenneth asks, what are the plans for June 14th? We are thinking about a
Yeah.
more social event. Is Indivisible National planning anything? That's Ken from Minnetonka, Minnesota. Funny enough, Ken, we are indeed planning something. Leah, how much can I share about this?
Very little, is my
Okay, I can share.
understanding.
Okay, I can share. We just had our national call with group leaders yesterday, where we gave highlights of what the plan is. What I can tell you is we are planning something that is counter programming Trump's ridiculous UFC fight on the White House lawn. He wants all the attention on him. He wants spectacle and attention. We don't have to give that to him. We are planning things. I don't want to take away energy from what we're doing this week in All Roads Lead to the South. So, what I can commit to is by next week for what's the plan, we will talk in greater depth. If you were looking for planning purposes, I would hold June 14th on your calendar. That's a Sunday. I would particularly hold the late afternoon or early evening on your calendar for the plans that we have in place. I think it's going to be pretty cool. It is about community building, and I think people are going to want to participate in it. So stay tuned for next week. But for this week, stay focused on All Roads Lead to the South.
I want to pull two other scheduling questions up from the chat. There's Mike with will there be a 250 years of No King's Day on July 4th? And then there's another question around whether we will be throwing in for the Good Trouble Lives On weekend of action week, July 17th through 19th. Really quickly, July 4th. So this is obviously a day of enormous, enormous significance. It is the 250th anniversary of our country. And also, one of the things that we've talked about on this call a number of times is that July 4th is actually a uniquely tricky day for a volunteer-led movement to plan mass mobilizations or actions. And that's for a really obvious reason if you are yourself a local organizer and you think about it, which is that, about a third of the people in this country travel on the weekend of July 4th. And so a lot of your organizing core and a lot of your event attendees are somewhere that they are not normally during that weekend and are not necessarily available to either organize or attend in the places that they regularly would. And so, we've run into this challenge in previous years where it sounds like the right day to go all in. And also, it can be actually, practically speaking, a pretty big challenge to route through a distributed network all over the country. So, which is all just to say, definitely thinking about narrative interventions. If you're in a town that's got a 4th of July party, I hope you're going to get your No Kings float or your No Kings signs to march in the parade. Think about ways you can kind of inject that No Kings spirit. But we're unlikely to do, the next No Kings mass mobilization. Second, we will definitely be part of Good Trouble Lives On. More information is coming soon, but in the meantime, you can actually join me on the Good Trouble Lives On mass call, which is tonight at 7 p.m. We will pop a
And
link in the
for
chat.
And for podcast listeners, that was last night
Oh,
at 7
you
p.m.
cannot
That
join
was
me.
but you could go to nokings.org and or indivisible.org and find a recording of it if you'd like. Leah, I thought there was funny note that the interaction over the June 14th was a very husband-wife interaction. For folks who are new to the Zoom or the podcast, a regular experience is me accidentally oversharing internal strategic
Yes.
plans before they are baked. And Leah, when we had this call together and we did it in the same room, would very quietly but very firmly pinch me to tell me to shut up. But now
One
we're in
one
different rooms, so
reason
it's more difficult for her to do that.
One reason to watch live or to watch the video version of this is you can see the slight facial reactions that I have when Ezra says something that we're not supposed to say on the air.
This might surprise y'all, but Leah's actually a very good poker player, even though she has a terrible poker
Well,
face.
thank you. Thank you.
I regularly lose money to her. Okay, we answered the July 4th question. We've got a question from Wendy. Hello from Indivisible, Connecticut. An effective social media strategy is likely to enhance our work in election season and beyond. You'd indicated last year that you were going to hire a social media professional. Could you give an update on what's happening in this area? So we've got social media team that is stellar across many platforms. One thing that you might be pointing to here is actually our efforts to build up an entire class of creators within the Indivisible movement. And that exists, Wendy. And if you are not yet connected to the creator community with Indivisible, you should be. The team that Antonio Arellano, who leads up our CARMS work, which includes our new media work, they have put together a series of creator trainings. These are how to build up your following for your Indivisible group. What are some tools of the trade? What are some best practices? How can you grow your following? I think everybody with an Indivisible group should be doing this. I know it's scary and new for many people. I know new platforms like a TikTok or an Instagram or a Blue Sky might not be immediately obvious how to use. What I would tell you is if you want to grow your movement, it is not enough to just be mentioned on Rachel Maddow. I love being mentioned on Rachel Maddow. I love that I see groups highlighted there. That can be part of it. We need traditional media covering the movement as well. But for younger people who and for reaching audiences who aren't as plugged into politics, you got to meet them where they are. And they are on social media. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend, in addition to engaging with the MS Nows of the world, in addition to engaging with your local press, and traditional newspapers, you should be building up your following. We do offer trainings there, and I think it's a good thing for any organizer to be doing. Claire asks, with what Tennessee did with redistricting and then removing Democratic state senators from committees and state assembly people, what about organizing some tourist boycotts to cities like Nashville? Isn't economics one way to get them to realize what they're doing is wrong? Leah, you've got this
I'm here for
screen for
the economics
boycotts.
question.
Can you run this boycott proposal through your boycott and economic pressure screen?
Well, let me say this. This is something that we are actively talking to folks from Tennessee and Memphis about. And in general, one of the kind of basic principles for any kind of, any kind of boycott that's targeting a place is that you really want to have a very tight consultation and interaction with the people who live in that place who are impacted by the harm in order to be confident that the boycott is, you know, using leverage the right way, that the consequences for the impacted set of folks do not outweigh the harm. So which I'll say that it's definitely the kind of thing that we should be looking at. And also we're going to want to look at what's emerging specifically from places like Memphis. And I think one thing that's maybe just worth naming when we talk about the overarching, crisis that we are facing here, what we are seeing is the backlash and the organizing around this most recent episode of redistricting and the stripping of assembly members from their committees. There's also like a broader crisis of blue cities self-governance in red states. If you are familiar with a lot of these places, they are actively working to strip kind of the basics of ability to govern themselves from places like Memphis. Ezra and I spend a lot of time in Austin, same dynamic with the Texas government, where they're really trying to like take away a lot of the discretion or a lot of the authorities that a city has to set its own policies, to govern itself, to manage its own budget, et cetera. So there's kind of this double whammy of Memphis is being deprived of their federal representation at the same time that they are being deprived very much of like their rights to govern themselves. And so, long story short, we are definitely interested in thinking about, economic consequences, either for major corporations that have been silent or for the states themselves. Anytime you're going to go in on a corporation or a state specifically, there's got to be heavy leadership from people who are within that state, or else it's just not going to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Larry asks, can you give us any specifics on what Indivisible is planning nationally to safeguard the right to vote on election day in November and to protect the election results? Leah, we often talk about like there are three stages to this year. It's we got to win the primaries to create a Democratic Party that can win and will fight. We've got to crush the regime in the midterms by winning the elections in the Senate, in the House overall. And we've got to protect the results of that election because we know Trump is going to engage in some shenanigans as he sees the walls closing in. We talk about this election protection a lot. You are our lead on election protection. And I can tell everybody we have had a lot of internal planning around this and are not yet, but about to be ready to release something that is for the public. Do you want to talk about the overall architecture of our election security planning, Leah?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple things. First, I break this down a couple of different ways. The first is a set of threats around potential collusion between the Trump administration, local MAGA state or local officials, judges, etc., in places where there is a Senate race or a swing district that is significant to the possible Senate or House majority. In a bunch of these spaces, in the places where we can, we are pulling together folks into an election protection corps with the goal of making sure that indivisibles are connected, trained, prepared on the ground, and working directly with the relevant coalitions that are going to be in states to push back on all of the different kinds of threats. Because, it's not going to be one threat. It's going to be
Yeah.
a bunch of different challenges to the conditions in which elections take place, who is allowed to vote, the ability to early vote or vote by mail, polling places, etc., as well as potential threats to actual election day and the actual count that follows afterwards. The overarching strategy that the Trump administration has is essentially to kick up enough shit around the process of voting, who's allowed to vote, how the vote unfolds, to generate the grounds for the legal challenges that a wildly partisan set of courts can then sustain in order for them to maintain control of the House and Senate. So we want to intercept that early by having really organized folks on the ground in the places where there's going to be targeted attacks. Simultaneously, what I would say for everybody else, we are going to be rolling out actions over the course of the summer around what you can do wherever you are to protect and protect elections. And also, I would really encourage you to not think about there being one bucket that's like protect elections and one bucket that's like all of the other organizing that I'm doing, because the things that you are doing right now in your group, wherever you are, that bring in new people, that build your group strength, that try new tactics, that take on new challenges, those are actually the muscles that you are going to bring to a moment when there is a mass challenge to the election. Because fundamentally, we're going to need to have targeted work in the places where the threats are most likely, and we're going to need to have a massive popular opposition and reaction everywhere else in the country. And so part of what you are doing right now with every other action that you're doing, from your community building to your Ice Watch trainings to your local advocacy, is building the popular coalition that's capable of that massive public backlash.
All roads lead to the South is election protection
Yes,
work.
exactly. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Donating to Black Voters Matter is election protection work. Pulling together your indivisible group to organize its community is election protection work. There's no
Yes.
magic. We snap our fingers and in November we all protect the election. The only thing that we've got is massive nonviolent organized people power. The only question is how much of it do we have? And you can't just build it at the drop of a hat, you build it over time. So that's what we're all doing here. We're going to win the primaries. We're going to build a Democratic Party that inspires and delivers. We're going to crush the regime in the midterm. We're going to take the House. We're going to take the Senate. We're going to take the state houses. We're going to take the governorships. Then, when they try to pull some shit in November, we're going to protect the results. And then we're not going home because in January, when the gavel switches over to Democratic in the House and in the Senate, those subpoenas are going to fly because we're going to demand that they fly. We're going to get the hearings. We're going to get the testimony. We're going to crush this regime using the best tool we have, the democratic process, because that's how you crush an authoritarian regime, is by organizing mass people power. That's the plan, Leah, unless you got a different secret plan I'm not aware of.
That sounds like a good plan.
That's the plan, y'all.
I'm
And the
bought
other
in.
part of the plan is we'll see you next week for another edition of What's the Plan. And until then, you'll see Leah Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, on the call covering All Roads Lead to the South. You will see me and many, many others out in Alabama this weekend on Saturday. Keep on building, y'all. Hope to see you in the streets.
Recording stopped.